Salutations, everyone. Welcome to the AOE podcast number 10, where we cover a wide variety of topics, including galaxies that are very far away. Today, I'm joined with my dad, and we're going to be talking about Star Wars and The Last Jedi, because there's a lot to unpack here. Definitely the most divisive Star Wars movie, I think, ever. I think most people didn't like the prequels. Most people liked the original trilogy. There was definitely some mixed feelings on The Force Awakens, but the Rotten Tomatoes user rating for The Last Jedi is incredibly low, and we have people trying to make petitions so that it's not canon to the actual Star Wars, which is kind of crazy. So we're going to have two different perspectives here. My dad obviously watched the movies when they first came out in theaters, and then all the subsequent films after which as well. Although I don't think you saw the animated Clone Wars movie, did you?
No, I did not see. I saw some of the TV series.
It was not good. And it was only like 70 minutes or 80 minutes or something.
And that's part of canon too, I imagine then?
Yeah, it was Clone Wars with Ahsoka Tano and all that. It was like one small fight in that war. But my experience with Star Wars is really no different. I grew up watching the original cuts on VHS, and then the special editions came out, saw those in theaters. And then, of course, the prequels and now the new trilogy. So what did you think overall about the movie?
Well, Star Wars overall, I'm going to find something to enjoy because it's been part of my life since I was very young. And I think some of the main problem, just from my opinion, comes from Star Wars means so much to everybody, so much part of their life. It's mileposts for their life. And so everyone writes their own Star Wars story in their own head. So you're never going to meet people's expectations. For every person you like something, and if it's really well received, nobody's going to dislike it.
Yeah.
And this movie definitely I can see, rub some people the wrong way because it departs from what they felt in their head. Particularly, I feel, as it is in my case, how they handled the Luke Skywalker character in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I made a rant video about Star Wars fans that you guys could check out in the link below. And I made it before The Force Awakens came out, and I predicted that a lot of the purists, the hardcore Star Wars fans, weren't gonna like it no matter what it was because it didn't fit the fanfic that they had written in their head since they were 10. And I was mostly right about that, but The Last Jedi even more so, especially because Luke was in this one, and that was a character that was, just so hyped up. He was the hero of the original trilogy, and was so powerful and did so many things in the in Star Wars Legends, formerly known as the Extended Universe, which is no longer canon, which you've read.
I have read, yes. And enjoyed too, by the way.
So it's understandable that people are going to have more things to be upset because it involves Luke. I think not a lot of people had a ton of problems that Luke and Leia didn't have twins that both trained to become Jedi. They just had Kylo and he turned to the dark side, which is, I thought, easy to digest.
Yes. But
I definitely knew right from the get-go that purists were going to have a problem with this movie. And it's for a lot of reasons. Luke definitely one of them with how they handle his character. A lot of people wanted him to show off his powers and to be in a huge mega lightsaber fight.
I think that's actually one of the major points. It's definitely something I wanted to see. I don't mind him disappearing, but I would have liked to seen him be the Jedi Master, the lone receptacle until Rey came along of the using of the light side, so to speak, in the equal of the dark. And so I expected him to be at least somewhat equal to Snoke on the light side, and understandably that they, he cut himself off, as they say. But he didn't stay cut off, and then how they handled his, little, back and forth with Rey, and her not being trained whatsoever, but her being very strong. I thought that was a little bit hard to swallow, her kind of taking him down so fast, and how they handled that part of it. So, and the Star Wars is very, Skywalker centric, and I have some thoughts and ideas of what they might be possibly trying to do, moving on, now that Disney has them, to kind of their own set of characters, and it might be starting with Rey.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I think there are two quotes from the movie that perfectly sum up the movie. When Luke says, this is not going to end the way you think. And when Kylo says, let the past die, kill it if you have to. And that both of those, I think, resonated throughout the entirety of the film.
Definitely.
I mean, Luke gets the lightsaber and just tosses it over the shoulder. So right from the get-go, you can tell this isn't probably what most people expected.
Yeah, it's definitely not what people expected to happen. They probably thought this was going to be a little bit like Empire Strikes Back, with Luke taking his young fledgling Jedi under his wing and bringing her up, and maybe even though they liked the newer movies, a little bit of a battle of him and Luke and Rey battling together against Snoke and Kylo Ren, maybe, or something of that nature. And I think another thing that might be disappointing people had in their heads of the parentage of Rey, which I think is a big issue.
Yes, that is definitely a huge issue, which I would put all the blame on the fans. They, from the get-go, had so many theories about Rey's parents. Oh, she's definitely Luke's daughter. Oh, she's definitely Obi-Wan's daughter.
Or she's the twin of Ren.
Oh, yeah, that somehow we got no hints of whatsoever. And I knew whatever the answer was going to be, it wasn't going to be a satisfactory answer for the fans. And I think it's good that her parents were nobodies, because, I mean, Anakin he was a nobody. Yeah. Sure, he was conceived by the Force, but he was a slave. Luke seems to be a nobody, some moisture farmer out in freaking Tatooine. And then, he finds out, his sister's a princess and his dad's the, Lord Commander of the dark side Imperial forces. But he was from nothing, not knowing of his true parentage. But Rey truly was from nothing and had no parents. And I think it separates her because you can't attribute her character to her parents. Oh, Rey is this way because she had this cool dad or this cool mom. So I think that's okay. However, I wish they would have revealed that her parents were nobodies earlier in the film instead of dragging it out. Because the more dragging it out, it seemed to like it had to have a payoff.
Yeah, it did kind of lean that way. And once again, we still don't know, and who knows what tricks they might pull in the next movie, who her parents might be. Ren basically says, they're nobodies, and she goes, yeah, you're right, you're nobodies. And jumping into that dark hole there on the planet, she couldn't find any truth that she just saw herself. So we don't know. Is she going to be another midichlorian, immaculate conception type of kid? Or will her parent be somebody like surprising? Like, for instance, a little tryst that Luke might have had that he never know resulted in a kid. I'm not saying that's happened, but I can see them going lots of different ways.
Right. And I don't think that's going to happen. I truly think her parents were nobodies, but people are so angry that it wasn't one of their crazy theories that they think is amazing that they still don't believe it. People still don't believe, like, oh, no, she actually is Luke's daughter. Oh, no, she actually is Obi-Wan's. Oh, no, she's actually a clone. She's a clone. That's why, in like the little Hall of Mirrors, it's just a bunch of Reys. Oh, yeah, she's definitely a clone.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And people think, oh, Snoke's definitely a clone. Snoke didn't die because they're so angry that Snoke died. Like, oh, no, he didn't die. You're an idiot if you believe that. He totally didn't die. He just did a force projection like Luke did. Which definitely has some problems considering
that his body stayed there quite a long time afterwards.
Yes. And he obviously had a physical presence. Now, Snoke definitely was very powerful, and we don't know Luke's limitations, but Snoke is definitely the most powerful dark side user that we have seen. And I think that is exemplified in many different ways when he yells at Hux and ragdolls him around the bridge. He's doing that from across the galaxy because his ship was not there for that attack. Right. So there's that, which no one else has been able to just use the Force across the galaxy before. And then when he uses the Force lightning to knock down Kylo, it's definitely, not meant to do harm or like a warning out of anger, but it clearly blasts him back. And we do know Force lightning pushes people like what Palpatine does to Windu out the window. But this was much more forceful and seemingly more powerful. And he obviously wasn't even trying to do any sort of damage to Kylo. He was just angry. And clearly Kylo, learned the Force Freeze that he uses on Poe at the beginning of Force Awakens, as well as on the laser blast and against Rey on Takodana. He learned that from Snoke because we get to see him use it, and he's just dragging Rey around.
Oh yeah, it sure is.
So he is very powerful. Like when Rey tries to get the lightsaber like Luke does in Return of the Jedi, and he just sweeps it around her, hits her in the back of the head. He's incredibly strong because we get to see Rey and Kylo fight for that lightsaber, and they're like equally matched, where Snoke completely overpowered her. Another thing is Kylo and Snoke are not Sith.
No, they just like Kylo said, let the Sith die, let the Jedi die. They're just the new generation of the dark user master.
Yeah, they're still using the dark side of the Force, and they're definitely fans of the dark side. Kylo's, cosplaying as little baby Vader. And we know that Snoke is super fan of Vader as well. He's wearing the ring that he has some obsidian from Mustafar, which is where Vader's castle was that we see in Rogue One. And he's got some inscriptions of those trophies that Palpatine had in his office. So we both know that they're fans, but they're definitely not Sith. They are master apprentice. And as you've told me before, Snoke shouldn't be surprised that...
No, he died in the typical Jedi dark side master way. The apprentice always takes down the master, and that's how they keep promoting themselves, so it should be zero surprise.
Right, but I think I didn't really have a problem with his death. What Rian Johnson did a lot in this film was definitely subverting expectations, and a lot of people were angry that Snoke was taking out, or we didn't learn who he was, what his backstory was. Well, guess what? We didn't get that with Palpatine in Emperor or Jedi. We didn't get to learn his backstory till the prequels. Nobody had a problem with that. We didn't learn where he came from. We didn't even know his name. He was just the Emperor. We still haven't learned anything about Yoda. We don't know what his species is. We don't know his story. Yet nobody's angry about that, but Snoke dies, everyone's angry. Now, I don't have a problem with him dying, but I wish they would have gone into, and they might do this in the next one, where they go into how he got a connection with Kylo in the first place.
Well, this guy is, as you mentioned before, shown powers that we haven't seen before. Now, it makes sense that Snoke exists because whenever there's a vacuum, that vacuum gets filled. Therefore, there was a vacuum to the dark side. Snoke stepped up and took it. So we don't know how he came to be. He may not even wielded a lightsaber in his life. We don't know. He doesn't seem to need it. And so he could have reached Kylo from across, felt his power and reached across the galaxy.
He definitely did because, in the novels, in Aftermath and after, once everything became canon after Force Awakens, when Leia's pregnant with Kylo, she feels the dark side drawing to him. And when Luke is talking about Kylo's training, he mentioned Snoke, that he felt that Snoke had gotten to him. So how does Luke know Snoke? And what exactly was Snoke's relationship with Kylo prior to, Luke turning on that lightsaber on him? So I wish that they would have given us some sort of backstory to that, but I don't have an issue with him dying, or in the way that he did, because they handled it very well, that he was so overconfident that I know what Kylo's going to do. I know what he's thinking. He's going to turn on his lightsaber with full conviction and destroy his true enemy. That is exactly what happened.
And also, he was turning his own red lightsaber around, and so he was just turning two lightsabers around. So you can see that motion, the lightsaber turning, is all the same thing. And actually, how else are you going to kill Snoke?
Yeah.
The only way you can kill Snoke is if maybe Luke did it.
Right.
If you're going to have a one-on-one coming at each other with full power. So the only way that you can kill Snoke without some major light side user coming involved would be through some trickery, which is all about the dark side using trickery and deception.
Yeah. And I think that was handled well. And it makes sense for Kylo's character because, destroy the past, kill it if you have to. And that's exactly what he did. He wanted to abolish the Sith way, the Jedi way, the Resistance, the First Order, and make his own thing, which is, his character, his prerogative. And we also got to see in the kind of the gray area of where Rey thought he was going to turn. And he was like, I know when the time comes, you're going to turn. And both didn't really pan out for either. I don't know exactly what Rey saw in his future. Did she see him killing Snoke and then, all right, he's turning to the dark side because I can feel he's going to kill Snoke? Or does he end up turning later on, which is a possibility? I don't see it happening now because, as Leia and Luke and everyone has said, he's just too far gone.
And I agree. And it'd be too much of a return to the Vader at the last second, sacrificing himself, so to speak. And they really can't do the same thing because Vader was kept alive by the Dark Force because, he's kept alive by the machine, his uniform, where Kylo, is fully functioning. That being said, I'm not really sure what they're going to do with Kylo, but if I had my gut instinct is he is not going to turn because you need the bad side.
Yeah, and Snoke's dead.
That somebody else has to at least take Kylo's place. And since Kylo is the top dark user currently, as of the end of the movie, he has to be at least a bad guy for quite some time. And unless some new guy comes out of the blue, who knows what they're going to do. I really don't see him turning. He killed Han Solo. And that to me is an unforgivable thing for the Star Wars world, so to speak.
Right. I think people will be a little less forgiving about killing Han Solo than killing a bunch of younglings.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If you look at it, it's pretty dark, but it happened such a long time ago and no one else really knows about it except Obi-Wan, that it's not as so visceral and so current in the mind.
Yeah. And Kylo is an interesting character, and I think he is, even for the people that, hated The Last Jedi, I still think that they don't have much of a problem with Kylo's character. You have that inner conflict. He's not as sure of himself. And, Vader had some conflict, but we didn't see that for a while. And Kylo is in a much more interesting spot because of, who he is, who his parents are, and, training with Luke and all that, and still being part of the dark side, constructing his little lightsaber that needs to vent on both sides because it's its ragged little kyber crystal. But yeah, we still need the main antagonist. So, I mean, there might be some sort of cathartic ending at the end of the next one, but he's still the bad guy. He's still the force that they need to fight against. He's the supreme leader now.
And now, through all the movies, there's always been a balance of one side being stronger. And as in literature of various stories I've read throughout my life, the dark is very concentrated onto the few, where the light is diffused, group effort, as we like to root for that side. And now they made a very strong point, as you mentioned earlier, of Rey and Kylo being so well matched of light and dark that they pulled the lightsaber apart. So they're very in your face on, okay, now we have balance. Here's dark, here's light. They're both as strong. Look how strong Rey was. I mean, Luke had a hard time while under training of Yoda to pick up a rock or pick up his ship, where she just basically picked up all these gigantic boulders for the first time. She even tried and just picked them up, held them there for a while, and then flung them away.
Right. And I think balance of the Force, something that's so key to the Star Wars universe, is definitely something that a lot of people just gloss over in their disparaging remarks of really a lot of the movies, because we always hear about the balance of the Force and the prophecy of the Chosen One. And a lot of people still seem to think that Luke was the Chosen One and brought balance to the Force, but it was Anakin. He did fulfill he balanced the Force, right? You have one Sith in Papa Palpatine and a couple hundred Jedi. Anakin turns to make it 2 Sith and 2 Jedi by killing all the other Jedi, and Obi-Wan and Yoda, the only 2 left. So 2-2, boom, now it's balanced. Yoda and Obi-Wan bite the dust, and Luke's coming up, takes out Palpatine, and it's 1-1 again, and then, he bites the dust a few minutes later. And people have a problem with Luke turning his lightsaber on Kylo, even if it was for a brief moment, because the hero of the story wouldn't do that. He wouldn't be so weak. But we all saw Return of the Jedi, where he had that pull to the dark side. We get to see his face cut in half between shadow and light when Vader is trying to find him under those scaffoldings and stuff, where he definitely has that temptation and pull to the dark.
And to me, it kind of implies, okay, what would we do? We see the teenage Adolf Hitler sleeping in a bed.
Yeah.
And you telling me something doesn't fleet across your mind? You see the millions and millions of people that you see in the future, which Luke does, see how powerful he's going to get, is going to kill and murder. And he's, should I take this guy? See the pull. Or is anyone going to be so magnanimous as, oh no, this is a single life. Who cares if it saves a million? So you can see the indecision and the temptation to end the horror before it starts.
Yeah, even though Kylo hadn't done anything, I mean, future seeing is something that we've seen. You know, Anakin being able to foretell Padme's death. Rey is able to see the island before she even gets there, and Kylo mentions that when he's interrogating her. I see the island. Don't worry, I feel it too. And she's able to see something in Kylo that she thinks will pull him back to the light, and that might have been him turning on Snoke. But being able to see the future is a thing that we all see, and we hear Yoda talk about how delicate of a thing seeing the future is, and how that really twisted Anakin and what he thought was going to happen and what ended up.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, as a lot of times when people see the future.
Exactly. And Rey kind of says that, you made his choice for him, by turning that lightsaber on him, make him feel like he didn't have a choice to rebel and turn to the dark side and push him back all the way to Snoke. So Luke is, for lack of a better term, human. There's always going to be that balance of the dark and the light, and he sees that more so than any other Jedi before him. And he says that when he's on the island talking to Rey, how there needs to be a balance between the two.
Well, she exemplifies a lot of balance to me. I mean, look about when she fights. You see her facial expressions. She's fighting with a lot of anger, which, of course, is something the Jedi have always said, no, you kind of become cold and isolated. But you can see her she was drawing towards the hole. Luke said, you didn't even try to stop that.
Yeah.
And when she fights, it seems like she's fighting with both sides a little bit. I don't know if they're going that way, but I'm just based off how she was portrayed when she's fighting. She has a grimace on her face. Just because you grimace doesn't make you bad, don't get me wrong. But it goes against the teachings of what the Jedi have been in the past. Oh, don't fight with anger. Don't fight. That brings you to the dark side. But she seems to kind of have a little bit of both in her. Yeah,
like in Kingdom Hearts, where Mark Hamill, the Keyblade Master, is talking to Terra about, fighting with darkness, and so he doesn't pass Keyblade Mastery. But a lot of people still are always going to have a problem with Rey, A, because she's a girl, and B, because she's good at things. And that, like Snoke says, there was going to be a light side to rise against Kylo, and that clearly is what Rey is. Kind of like in the now non-canonical Forced Unleashed video games, where there is a presence in the Force where everything becomes more powerful, where Vader's apprentice is able to take a Star Destroyer and pull it down to the ground because the Force was being unleashed. I know that's not canon anymore, but that is, in a sense, what is happening. The Force has awoken, and there has been an awakening, and there has to be a light to combat the dark. Like Snoke says, he thought it was going to be Luke, but it ends up being this nobody from Jakku.
And since we have no Jedi, and Luke cut himself off from the Force, I guess it kind of makes sense that maybe she was imbued by the light side to bring equilibrium, so super powerful upon her awakening. She's much more powerful than Anakin was. Zero training, and she could do things well beyond anybody else with just pure instinct. So it might be a little bit of that.
Right. It's like in Legend of Korra, where Korra opens up the spirit realm and we get Airbenders again. Because it has to have that balance, and all of a sudden, boom, Airbenders pop out of everywhere, even though their parents weren't Airbenders or whatever. So that's just sprouts forth because that's just the way that it needs to be. There needs to be Airbenders, so they created Airbenders, and there needed to be a force of light to clash against Kylo, so out pops Rey. Somehow, some way, the Force is finding a balance, because we know it's not all hereditary. A lot of people like to point to Anakin and say, boom, he popped out two kids that are Force sensitive, but that's clearly not hereditary because Jedis are supposed to be celibate.
Right. It's an anomaly. It's an anomaly because of how Anakin was conceived. And so you can see it in that particular bloodline, but that was an exception. Where it seems clear to me, talking about it more, and the first movie we saw, you kill Solo. Okay, now Luke goes away. So they realize people are going to need some kind of closure with their current heroes. Wrap them up. Now we're going to create our own line. And starting with Rey and Kylo, so to speak, even though he's part of the Skywalker line too, so to speak. And now we kind of closed the chapter on that. Now here's our new beginning. And we own that mythology. We don't owe something to something that's been done by somebody else. And we can create this now forward in any direction we want to go.
Right. I read one review of someone who liked the movie, and they said, The Force Awakens was a love letter to the original trilogy. The Last Jedi was a farewell to the original trilogy. And, I mean, it was quite obvious. I mean, someone was going to die from the original trilogy when they were going to make this new one. And it was obviously going to be Harrison Ford because, he doesn't want to be Han Solo forever.
That's true.
So we can definitely theorize that he was like, all right, I'll do the movie, but only if you kill me. Because we all know he almost didn't do Return of the Jedi.
I can imagine that very conversation happening just like that.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, give me a lot of money and I only do one. So we could definitely, see that was going to happen. And when Leia gets sucked out, that was a bit of a surprise for me because, with Carrie Fisher's passing, we were hearing, no, we aren't gonna, kill her off for the next movie or, write her out. But, they still didn't know what they were going to do. And so that made me anticipate that she was going to live. But when she gets sucked out, when those bombers or when those TIE fighters proton torpedo the bridge after Kylo doesn't do it, it made it seem like, wow, maybe they don't need to because they're actually going to kill her off. But then, she comes back and a lot of people are really pissed about that scene.
Oh, the way she flew back and using the Force to bring her back into there and surviving, of course, out there.
The vacuum of space.
The vacuum of space. But of course, this is a different world and she is descended from the Jedi. Yeah. Latent or not, it's still there.
She's Anakin's daughter.
Anakin's daughter, so reasons.
Yeah, it clearly wasn't something that she knew she could do. It was a reflex.
Yes.
Kind of like with Rey, when she pilots the Millennium Falcon for the first time, Finn's like, how did you do that? And she's like, I don't know. That the Force has always been with her. She just hasn't really been able to put a name to it. She says in The Last Jedi, there's something that's always been a part of me, and I need someone to find my place in all this. And with Leia, we don't know what her, connection to the Force really is, but the scene made sense to me.
I was so surprised a little bit about it, but I think they're looking for a grand way for Leia to use the Force. And they chose a very grand way to do so. It made perfect sense to me that she didn't die because it seems more they were kind of geared up to knock them off one by one per movie because it's such a large impact thing. And since this movie was made before Carrie Fisher actually did pass, it made sense that she survived and that Luke went at the end. Because it would have been more anticlimactic or too much if you do them both at the same time.
Right, because Rian Johnson said that after Carrie's passing, he talked with Amy about Carrie, and they were talking about what they're gonna do. Do they leave that on-screen death stick and kind of, have that be how she dies? But it wasn't written as a way to kill her off, so it wouldn't feel right thematically.
And she had other scenes through the rest of the
Yes,
movie.
and they didn't want to lose those scenes where she's talking with Poe and when she's talking with Rey and the reunion with Luke. They didn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
They thought that those were some of the best interactions and some of the best scenes, so they kept it in, and I think that's perfectly fine. But so many people are super pissed that, Leia can fly, that's way too strong, blah, blah, blah. She isn't trained in the Force, yada, yada, yada. I mean, first of all, it's not like she was Plo Koon. When Order 66 went out and he's in his fighter and then the clones shoot him and his ship explodes. She didn't explode, she was just sucked into the vacuum along with Akbar and everybody else. And a lot of people are mad that Akbar died. Well, I mean, his actor died. So we weren't gonna, there's one reason to not use Akbar anymore. A lot of people said we should have had Akbar instead of Admiral Holdo so that he can do the suicide mission on the Mon Calamari ship. But his actor was dead, and
you're not going to get a lot of facial expressions and things with that kind of squid head on.
Yeah. And Admiral Holdo was already introduced a long time ago in the novel. She went up with the Academy with Leia, so we know why Leia trusted her so much. But let's talk about her, because that was an interesting character. The problem I have, which it seems to be the biggest plot hole to me, and it was immediately evident, which is sometimes you'll watch a movie and be like, all right, that was great. And then you think about later, or someone brings it up and you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense. I didn't think about that. But here I instantly thought about it. Why didn't she tell Poe her plan?
Well, it was more to keep us in doubt. If she was goodbye, was she secret?
Yes, obviously.
Secret Empire spy, and that's why they didn't do Akbar and did her, because she was so unknown to everybody, so to speak.
Yeah,
you didn't know if she was going to do something good. Was she being a coward? They wanted to keep that whole mystery going.
A lot of Star Wars fans are, the purists out there are convinced that she was originally written to be the mole, and then they changed everything. Which there is absolutely no evidence to support that. And yeah, she does have that quote from Leia that, you have to believe in something all the time, not just when you can see it. So that's in a sense, trust me that I have a plan, even though I'm not going to tell you the plan, but just tell him the damn plan. He's Poe Dameron. He was the commander. He's your best fighter. There's no reason to keep it from him.
I think what they're trying to do is with you're the hotshot guy who goes off half-cocked, just like Leia lit into him and demoted him for it, and therefore she didn't trust his judgment and thought he would disapprove of it so much and he'd cause trouble, since, let's face it, she was more unknown. He understood the crew, and that's why he was able to pull that mutiny, because let's face it, that's what it was a mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, the hard time I had with it is, boys will be boys business, and everything's fine and dandy after his mutiny fails.
Right, but if she would have told him, then there's no mutiny. Because he says once he learns about it, that could work. But if she just would have told him, then that doesn't happen.
No, and that's why they didn't tell him, because then it takes us out of the whole suspense part that they wanted us, the audience, to feel. Right.
I completely understand that, and they give us some justification that you're just a hotshot pilot, you were demoted, and you need to trust me no matter what, because, I'm the commanding officer. But she still should have told him. That part doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, she should have told him, but I can tell you from a guy who's 30 years in the military, if you're a vice admiral and you got some two-bar kind of getting your face, she should have kicked him off the bridge a long time ago. The guy's insolence was beyond reproach, and he was a lower-level officer at this time. He didn't need to be part of the brain trust, and it wouldn't necessarily happen that way. And he just got demoted. Can I trust this guy? The person, my mentor, Leia, who's in a coma, just demoted this guy, and now I'm going to bring him into the inner circle. I don't think I can trust this guy yet. He just got demoted. There's a reason why she did that. I'm going to keep this little secret. You're too low level now.
Right, but at the same time, it's just a small ragtag of a resistance fighters, not exactly a military force, and there is no negative in telling him the plan. Oh, maybe he won't like my plan and he'll try to do a mutiny. You don't tell him the plan, he still does a mutiny.
Yeah, I agree. It was a bit forced. They tried to, playing devil's advocate, excusing them for doing it. But I agree. It was a little bit over the board, just so they can fool us, so they think, for a little bit.
Right. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean there's no autopilot? You're bullshitting us. And yes, obviously a Mon Calamari ship is going to have some sort of autopilot. Also, you're in space. You don't need an autopilot. You're just going to be moving on a pure inertia.
And I could also tell you this, once again, having been in the military, there is no admiral anywhere that still remembers how to con a ship. So if she wouldn't even know how to do it, she'd been so far removed from her early days and been able to do that stuff, she would have been capable technically to be able to do it. And you wouldn't have, let me sacrifice my second in command now to do this ship, when you probably could have had any one of those rebels volunteered themselves to be the sacrifice.
Right. And I mean, Poe is just an X-Wing fighter, and he clearly knew how to pilot a ship and put it into hyperspace once Finn and Rose's plan was supposed to come together. But I don't know how easy the interface is on a Mon Calamari ship. But, so yeah, there should have been, they could have given her a better reason to stay on the ship than there's no autopilot, which is kind of crazy. It is an older ship, because it's a holdover from, Rogue One.
Yes.
Cause that ship is named after, Akbar had that ship named after the dude who was, the squid dude who was in charge, who got the transmission codes from Urso on Rogue One. So, it is an older ship. It's a legacy ship. That's like why it's, it's the biggest ship that they have left. All they have is like, the medical frigates and everything else we see get blown up in the original trilogy. But still, there's going to be something that could pilot the ship. Not that it needs piloting, because it's just going to keep moving at space. There's nothing there to stop it. But I thought, when she turned the ship around, I was like, she's going to prep that thing into hyperspace and slice right through that thing. And that was pretty cool.
That was a good scene. And I think they made a great choice on making that silent, as it would be in space.
Mm-hmm.
It made it the visual much more dramatic than if you just add this big explosion sound, because then it would have distracted from the hard work that they did to have that thing split in half. And so I thought that was a very intelligent thing to do to make it silent.
Yes. I thought it was, and you always hear the audience go like, oh, whoa, oh my God.
Yeah, very much so.
Because everything is so silent. But of course, some people are going to have a problem with that. Oh, so suicide hyperspace is a thing. So why doesn't everybody just do that? And first of all, there were hyperspace weapons in the extended universe that these purists love to talk about so much. There were hyperspace weapons, that were function very similar to the Death Star. There was hyperspace weapons that could move planets, but could also be used to destroy them. And in the extended universe that everyone loves so much, there was evidence that this type of thing had happened before. There was a planet whose core had been damaged because there was a ship that went into hyperspace and had a malfunction, and clearly debris or the entire ship, just ripped apart and hit this planet at hyperspeed and damaged it severely. So there is precedence in their precious extended universe that this thing has happened before. And B, it was a Mon Calamari ship. This thing is huge. So, and, Snoke's ship isn't moving, so it's an easy target. It's not like you can just do this in the middle of a battle where everything's moving. But it's a big, slow, almost stationary ship, and you have a big Mon Calamari ship hyperspacing through it. It makes sense to me that it did what it did.
Yeah, and also it brought to her sacrifice to a more heightened level instead of her just steaming straight ahead and getting blown up by a missile from a distance.
Yeah.
This brought it to a little bit more, like I said, visceral. And I thought that was actually, I enjoyed that, and they got the impact from the audience, having seen the movie twice, that they were hoping for.
Yeah. And another thing that people have a problem with is, why didn't they just blow up their fleet with all of their ships? We get to see when Kylo goes in and blows up their hangar, which I don't know why that's like the only hangar, but I guess we get to see, I don't know if Ellie's dead, the A-Wing pilot. It seems like she got killed in it, and obviously Poe's X-Wing was destroyed. But Hux says that you need to pull back, we can't protect you, and then the fighters that were with Kylo, that proton torpedoed the bridge, they get shot down, because they have all, the cannons and all the other ships can shoot them down. So people have a problem with that. They're like, oh, why are they just shooting lasers from afar? And why don't they just hyperspace some people ahead of them? It's just not that easy.
No, it's not that easy. And also, you're not going to read chapter 2 and then jump to chapter 25 at the end of the book. There has to be some kind of build-up. There has to be that tension. There has to be the chase,
right,
if you will.
I think there was pacing issues with the movie in itself. I'm not saying that there weren't. I definitely think there was, because once they get tracked on the end of a string, as Hux says, the last, 70% of the movie takes place just within a couple of hours. And I've read a lot of reviews, so I know exactly what some people are harping on, and a lot of it, I'm not saying most of it, I doubt that it's most of it, but a lot of people still have a problem that there are women in Star Wars. That's the thing. no matter what fan base it is, if it's historically mostly male, people are always going to have a problem whenever a female rears their head because it ruins their thing, ruins their childhood because there's a vagina in space now.
Well, this is remarkable. You have this highest technology we've ever seen, but yet we still want to be back in the Stone Age or the J.R.R. Tolkien type of version where there's like one woman in that universe. So it's quite ridiculous, and I don't think that's going to be their target audience anyway, this coming forward. This movie seems to me, and they made a strong over-the-head hammering point of this being a reset. The end of the movie, when you see the kid use the Force to pull the broom from him, and you see hit with a very heavy-handed rebel ring on there, the new beginning. Luke saying this is a new beginning, there's only 400 people left, it's not the end. It definitely seems like, okay, this is the end of this book now. It's a whole new chapter with a whole bunch of new characters coming to life.
Right. It definitely didn't feel like the second of a trilogy.
No, it seemed like the end of a storyline.
Yeah.
And now we're going to come out with a new series of books, so to speak. That's the end of that story. And now with a little leading into the new stuff. And their hands, like I said, once again, aren't tied to what's happened in the past. And now they literally can go anyway without saying you changed something. And so the only way you can do that is by ending things one way before you can begin things, because people have hey, that happened in movie 2 or whatever have you. That happened 30 years ago. You can't just pretend that doesn't happen anymore. So they really want to, I think, take this into their own different route without owing anything to something that's happening.
And that includes having more than Leia and Mon Mothma as the only two women in space. Because people had a problem that the main character in The Force Awakens was a woman. How dare you have a main character that's a girl in my Star Wars film? And then the Rogue One comes out and it's a woman again. And then they act like Force Awakens never happened. Like, a main character girl in a Star Wars movie? This is unheard of. I can't believe that they would do this.
And both those movies were loved, but overall. And so obviously it works just fine. And let's face it, we know by The Force Awakens that Rey is the new Luke Skywalker, for lack of a better term. She is going to be the main focus of the light side, the side we root for, and she's going to be the spearhead. Now, who's going to run the admiralship, whether it be Leia or somebody else behind the line? That's less focused than who we're going to be focused on and who we're going to follow the story through. We're going to follow the story from now on through Rey and what happens to her.
Right, because you can't hold on to the past forever, which a lot of Star Wars purists can't let go because the extended universe and all these stories, all this fan fiction that they love so much, because the movies aren't their fan fiction, they're disappointed and they think everything's ruined. And, there's Admiral Holdo, she's a woman too. Rose, she's a woman too. The men have flaws. SJWs are ruining Star Wars. There's a lot of that I hear complaints that, they have strong women. This is bullshit. And, they show men have weaknesses. This is completely ruined. And that isn't most of the criticism, but it's a large chunk. You'll find that, like I said, in anything that's male-dominated, there's going to be a lot of misogyny in it, whether you know it or not. But when something like this happens, where there's more than one girl, you're going to hear a lot of flack about it.
Well, they need to move forward. These things aren't being made for someone in the 50s like me who saw this when they were 13 years old. That's not going to pay the bills. I'm not the target audience here. I am in a way because this brings in new people and old people, but they really need to concentrate on the newer fans, the people that they're going to be building into now. People who are watching it now when they're 12, 15 years old, that if they want to keep this alive for 30 years, which I know they do because they're building a giant Star Wars at Disneyland coming right now. They want this thing to last forever as much as they can. They're going to have to build and get these new characters that these other people are going to get involved with at a young age now and moving forward. Their job, I don't think, should be to keep me happy. Now, they want to leave me with some happy memories, but they want to now build on a new fan base.
Yeah, and even if you didn't like The Last Jedi, you're still going to see the next one, because it's Star Wars.
That's exactly right.
You could have hated Phantom Menace, hated the Attack of Clones, and, Revenge of the Sith comes out. You're not going to not see it.
Yeah, you still saw it, and you still every now and again might refer to it, or you bought that DVD long time ago and you're embarrassed to have it, but you're still gonna pop it in if on May the 4th possibly, like they do on TV shows.
And even though everyone hated Phantom Menace, we all still recognize Darth Maul was super cool.
Very cool.
Duel of the Fates was a great orchestrated piece, and that lightsaber fight was amazing.
And I think that's why they ended Snoke the way they did. They wanted to kind of Darth Maul kill him, so to speak, and they could have just stabbed him, but they cut him in half.
Well, that's one of the criticisms. We're like, oh man, they Darth Mauled him. We didn't get to learn about his backstory. He didn't do anything. I mean, it's quite obvious he is frail. He's injured. We don't know how old he is. He wouldn't be able to go hand-to-hand combat with Kylo or Rey or Luke. He needs the Force to do what he does.
I don't think we've seen him out of that chair, have we?
I mean, he stands up.
Oh, yeah, but barely.
But yeah, he's clearly frail, powerful, but tissue paper. Yeah. I think that's very, very clear. And Andy Serkis, has voiced that he is very strong with the Force. He is not a Sith, but he is very frail. And obviously, in his performance, he's portraying that because he's doing the motion capture of it and he has the voice for it. But so many people are like, oh no, he looks slightly different from his hologram in The Force Awakens. So it's not really Snoke. It's a clone Snoke or it's a projection Snoke. People need to get over that Snoke's dead. Just because you didn't want him to die doesn't mean he's not dead.
Speaking of how things might have looked before and they look now, how did people respond to Yoda's look in this movie?
Yeah, people are like, oh my god, stupid jokes. I mean, in Empire, the most beloved Star Wars film in the universe, for whatever reason, because Boba Fett's in it, people have a boner for him. We have a Muppet hitting a robot with a stick in that movie. And nobody has a problem with that. Because, a Ridge Tridge, Empire, can't do wrong. Kasdan, Lucas didn't direct that one, therefore it's perfect. So, I had some problems with how many jokes that they had in The Last Jedi. There was more so than in The Force Awakens. And I liked the Porgs. The one that didn't seem necessary was the last one that hits the window when they're going through the caverns on that salt planet. That one just seemed kind of tonally out of place, but it's still Star Wars. It's still a kids movie. They're still going to make $1 billion off of toys for 8-year-olds.
Yeah. I wish they just have a little lighthearted. I mean, kind of like my mayonnaise. I like a very light touch on the bread. I don't like it slathered on where that's all you taste. And it wasn't so super bad, but a little lighter hand with the porgs and the funny stuff would have been appreciated.
I could have done without shirtless Kylo Ren.
Yeah, and then her having to point it on, what is she going to go gaga because he has no shirt on? He wasn't stark naked. He just had no shirt on. And they have her say the line, could you put something on? Am I distracting you? I mean, what was that about? I thought that was unnecessary.
I mean, some people love it because they love Kylo and, he doesn't have a shirt, he's dreamy. Some people hate it because Adam Driver doesn't have the most normal looking body, which is something that he's had to deal with his whole life. That's one of the reasons why he was able to watch Force Awakens, because he has a mask on most of the time and he has anxiety disorders about seeing himself and people making fun of his appearance.
Well, I'm glad he looks different. I like to see people are different. There's nobody that's cut out of an Abercrombie & Fitch. Those people are very few and in between. That's not your average person. And he's a young man who's still fit, but he looked a little different. I enjoyed him looking a little different.
Yeah, that part was fine, but I mean, people are going to have their highs and lows with the Reylo ship, but the shirt thing definitely just, I think I could have done without. There was just too many little tiny gags that they went with. I thought everything that Poe did in the beginning was fine with trying to talk to Admiral Hugs and all hold.
I enjoyed that.
That was funny. Even the drunk little gremlin dude putting coins into BB like it's a slot machine, that was alright. And then he shoots the coins later and then blows smoke. That was okay. I kind of have a problem that BB-8 tied and gagged 4 dudes. How did, not even R2 could do that. I mean, I have no problem with him incapacitating some of them, but they were bound and gagged.
Yeah.
How did he do that?
why'd they have to, they went once again for the comic little
A
gag.
little too far.
A little too far. He could have shocked them. He could have knocked them out. You could have had them passed out in that area, but being tied and gagged was going over the top.
Yeah, and while we're on that, my biggest problem with the movie, and as the biggest problem with a lot of people, both who bring up some good points and some really off base incorrect points, is the Finn Rose storyline where they go to the casino planet. It really seemed like they just wanted to give them something to do. And
they wanted to build in, as you can see towards the end, when Rey is looking at him caring for Rose, the person he fought with. He's not making out with her. He's just looking at her. You're seeing Rey going, oh, now here's a rival. Or they're putting that in our thought that there might be some kind of rivalry thing, that who is he going to love the most now? Is it going to be Rose he's bonded with? Or is it going to be Rey? It seems like a little unnecessary sexual tension that doesn't seem natural. That would be to me.
And people are always going to go off the deep end off of any interaction, whether it's that or Poe and Rey saying hi and like, oh my god, they're so hot for each other now. or that, you know, maybe Rose isn't in love with Finn. She does kiss him, and I kind of have a problem with how that went down. When Finn was going at that giant laser drill, I was like, they're killing off Poe. They're killing off Finn. Cause he's going for the suicide mission. He's going to do something that saves a lot of people. I thought they were going to kill him off right there.
I thought so too.
Because, you know, the music and the atmosphere, he turned off the communications. It definitely felt like that sacrifice mode was engaged.
It's kind of like the Deathly Hollow. Let's start killing people left and right to make things more desperate for everybody.
Yeah, and that was kind of crazy. And then Rose saves him. Okay, I have no problem with that. And then they make it look like Rose dies. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, so they killed her. And then she's alive still. It's like, all right, you can only yank my chain 2 times. 3 times is too many.
It had to be we were starting out with new characters. Rose is a new character. Rose is a young character. We can have these actors and these characters around for quite some time. So we're going to kill off the older people.
I have no problem with her surviving, but to make it seem like she might have died and then, oh no, she's fine.
Oh, I thought she was dead.
Yeah, I thought she was dead. And I thought that was, you know, we don't fight to kill what we hate. We fight to keep those that we love safe. So like the kiss is more of like a symbolic gesture in that, you know, I love us fighting for the right thing. I care about you. We're friends. We're all friends. We're all in it together. It didn't seem like a romantic thing.
No, and love is never supposed to be just about 2 people being in love. Love is encompassing. You're my son. I love you. So why do people automatically jump to that? Now, they kind of leave it that way, I think. The only reason I thought it is because they give Rey giving the look between Poe to caring for Rose. I didn't even think of her love being, lack of a better term, a sexual love. I thought it was just a love, you know, you're my friend, you're my compatriot, we've been through a lot together.
Which makes a lot of sense with Rose's character because she had lost her sister who fought and died for the cause.
This guy, so to speak, is her rebel brother. This is a replacement family for her a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that's what I thought that love was at first, until that Rey scene at the end. I think they try to, maybe it's in my head, but I thought they tried to plant something.
It's possible. I mean, because, you know, the third movie hasn't been written yet. JJ can do what he wants. Rian Johnson did what he wanted, and people have their ideas because reportedly Rian Johnson wrote this movie before The Force Awakens, before he had seen it, before he knew anything about it. I don't know what the truth is to that and what that may or may not entail and how the story was told in a way that people did or did not like. But I definitely didn't like the casino planet. It just felt unnecessary. And I don't have a problem with their plan not working. They didn't get the Master Code Breaker. They got somebody else that they thought was good enough. And it ended up failing and hurting them more than if they never did it. Because then he revealed to Phasma and Hux that they were cloaking ships and going to that other planet. So if Finn and Rose had done nothing, then a couple hundred more people survive. Their plan backfired in a big way. I don't have a problem with that because that kind of subverts our expectation of every crazy off-the-wall suicide mission is going to go well for everybody because it has so far in these 7 Star Wars films. This is one that didn't go right. And I don't have a problem with that, but the casino atmosphere was just like a little off-putting and a little out of place. I don't have a problem with the whole warmongering, people getting rich. Some people are like, oh, get politics out of my Star Wars.
Well, it definitely came across that way to me, that they wanted, these are the 1%. These are your hated people. They're part of the evil empire supporting, and the common man is being put down based off these other people. It seemed to me, I saw them doing that. At least that's the way it interprets.
Right, but those people are going to exist whether they're on camera or not.
Oh, exactly so. But they made a point to show them.
Right, and I don't think
and
that...
both sides, playing both sides, as an arms dealer would do. They're there to make money.
Yeah.
They don't care about good or bad or indifferent. And that's what they wanted to tell us, that, once again, with the guy that they thought the codebreaker, and then he portrayed them. They wanted to have a portrayal in there, obviously, too.
Now, it definitely took a turn for me when they got imprisoned, because then you have Guillermo del Toro, and, he pipes up. What I thought they were going to do was that he actually was the Master Codebreaker, and he lost his brooch against that guy in a gambling thing.
That's exactly what I thought when he started showing his talents.
Yeah, I thought, oh, he's actually Master Codebreaker. He's going to say that he lost it in a poker game or whatever, but he clearly wasn't that guy. And him, needing money, whatever, then he betrays them for more money, and then just kind of gets away. His character was just kind of seemed like really weird and off-putting, not just because, the stutter, whatever, that was fine. Guillermo del Toro is a very well-known actor, so, seeing him in a Star Wars movie is, a little jarring, because, oh, that's Guillermo del Toro. But I didn't like the way that it all just melded together with going to that planet. I mean, they show, those downtrodden kids. That's fine, showing, the opposite side of things and how things were for her and her sister, before they became resistance fighters, and kind of seeing that in those children and those people getting abused, and the rich, profiteering off of all this. The setting didn't seem very Star Wars-y to me. The escape was, I don't know, it all seemed very unnecessary. I wish they would have given Rose and Finn something else to do.
I think they're afraid of not having enough action, because they're criticized, for instance, some of the earlier movies, and calling it the C-SPAN Senate movie, and they were afraid of probably having any quiet moments, so they wanted to punch a lot of action into this, so they're trying to create situations where there'd be more and more and more action.
Right, and I think we see that where we have Finn, we have Rose, we gotta give them something to do. Why did Finn and Poe think of and go to Maz Kanata? That makes no sense at all.
They had, Finn knew her a little bit.
How does Poe know her?
How does Poe know her whatsoever? And how are they able to have her, she's gonna pick up the phone in the middle of a gun battle? Made zero sense. I think they were just kind of, once again, forcing something.
Just because they had her and okay, we have to use Maz Kanata somehow because she was in the last movie.
Or why couldn't it simply been Poe, hey, I know this Master Codebreaker. This is where he usually hangs out. Why don't you go try to get him?
It just felt like, alright, we need to get Maz in the movie somehow. And it's because, Poe wouldn't know her, Finn wouldn't think to go to her, and if he did, how does he know how to reach her? They met once for 5 minutes.
Once again, another forced element.
Yeah, that was just way out of left field. It's not like there was a lot of time between Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. It's been a couple hours between those movies at the most.
No, or a day or two at the most too. You're right.
Because we still see Rey with a lightsaber going to Luke, and the First Order is coming with their Star Destroyers to take out the Resistance base, which we knew about in the Battlefront 2 campaign, where Aiden's daughter goes to Leia and says, and stops the Star Destroyer from getting there earlier by taking out its hyperspace drive, and then saying, alright, I'm here to join the Resistance, I'm here to fight, and Leia says, go to the Outer Rim and rally our supporters out there. Which brings me to another question, why did nobody from the Outer Rim come to their aid? They received the message.
They do, and yet they're still gonna, there's still our hope, let's go out there again. And obviously they're gonna build something there. And the only reason why is because we wouldn't have had the big giant Luke Skywalker walking out in the middle of nowhere by himself scenario if they did come. And that's the reason why they do it. They wanted to give him some kind of big send-off. I personally wasn't happy with the type of send-off they gave him. Yes, I grant you, maybe it's less sexy of him projecting himself across the galaxy with his image. More, you have to be super powerful to do it, I grant you that. But that's what they chose, and they wanted to have that send-off moment for Luke, and that's why they didn't reply. Right.
But they could have had, our communications systems aren't working, these things are too old or whatever, or it just can't reach them. Why have it, I mean, they can totally explain this with a perfectly reasonable explanation in the next movie. They could totally do that.
And they probably will.
But it just seems kind of weird.
Well, maybe it's this. They wanted to feel like, okay, just like Leia says, it was a good run, everybody. And they wanted to feel like they're completely abandoned. There's no help. Nobody wants them. Everything, the resistance is all going to die. And if you said, hey, we're stuck there, I mean, the same thing could happen. But they wanted to be more desperate that everybody's just given up on this way of life, this resistance. And so that's probably the main reason they didn't have them come with we can't get there because, our keys are locked in our starship.
Right. And so I would like to see Aiden's daughter in the next movie, or even mention, Inferno Squad. And we hopefully get to see what the Outer Rim sympathizers are like, because now there's just a handful of the Resistance left. There's just who could fit in the Millennium Falcon.
Exactly. That's a very small, and okay, now we're starting over from scratch. Once again, I think that's one of their start from scratch. One thing I'm curious of, now that Carrie Fisher is no longer around, and they might be having different plans for the second movie, and since Luke is a Jedi Master, and he might just is they going to maybe pull a Yoda, and he's going to be back in spirit form, since they can't use Carrie Fisher anymore, so they can still have a little bit of Skywalker in there. Maybe give her some guidance in the spiritual aspect of things, which would very much be a Star Wars-y type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or is he gone? So I'm curious what they're going to do with Luke Skywalker now.
Right. And Amy Hennig did say that, Han Solo, his story was Force Awakens. This one was Luke's, and they both died at the end of theirs. And that the third one was going to be Carrie's, and then she died. So obviously they kind of have to, not scramble, because, they still have some time, but they need to figure out how to make everything fit. They say they're not going to kill her off, but we still need to have some sort of impact with her character. They could always make her into a hologram and have her, say some re-recorded lines or something. Right. From like a deleted scene or something else.
And you probably could do that, but you really can't carry a whole movie with that kind of stuff.
No, it's going to be difficult.
You have a sounding board for Rey somewhere.
It's going to be difficult to play around that. And as far as the Force Ghost thing, that was something I was curious about. Has Luke been talking to Obi-Wan and Yoda, and are we going to see them? No way are they going to do that. So I was super surprised when Yoda's ghost shows up.
Which made me think that maybe we're going to see Luke in the future, because why not? They're still staying with that aspect of the Force.
Yeah.
And here he is in spirit form, and he calls lightning down from the skies if he's standing there.
Which a lot of people are pissed about.
Well, I understand that reason. I mean, you're there in a spirit form, you're there to guide and stuff, I've never seen the spirit people affect the physical world before.
But we have, because Obi-Wan sits on a log in Dagobah. He doesn't just fall through it.
Well, that's true, but he can, just like Luke carried the fuzzy dice, or excuse me, the metal dice, and gave them to Leia, and then those disappeared. I can see him physically accommodate himself to the physical world, but sitting and pretending to sit on a log is a lot different than physically bringing down lightning.
Right, but two things here. A, it's Yoda. The dude of dudes. He's
900-year-old Jedi Master, yeah.
He's Yoda, and second of all, this was a Force tree. This was a Jedi temple. So there's going to be a stronger connection there.
Okay, I can give you that. It wasn't just some ordinary thing. This was the Jedi thing. And speaking of this, when he was about to destroy himself, and then, of course, you flip around going, why'd you destroy them?
Yeah.
And I found something interesting that Yoda says. Goes, oh, you don't need those pieces of paper, because everything that's in there is important. Rey already has in her head. what did they mean by that? She has all that knowledge. It's like does this to explain away why she needs no training? Is there something super extra important about her? Is there something extra?
The way I took it is that there's nothing within those old boring books that Rey needed to know. There was no grand wisdom. There was no one-liner mantra that she needed to learn. She already, what she had experienced with the Force and the darkness and fighting against Kylo and wanting to see the good in Luke and being part of the Resistance, she didn't need moral guidance.
But that goes against all these
And
movies.
she kept the books.
That goes against. He says, don't face Vader. You're not ready. You're not ready for this, that, and the other. You need more training. You need more training. You need more guidance. We have the master apprentice setup or, all that kind of stuff, Padawan stuff. And now all of a sudden, Rey doesn't need anything. She has everything she needs. Now, I might be able to deal with that a little bit better after the confrontation with Snoke and Kylo, but this happened before that.
Right.
And so, now that she's been through the crucible, I can say, okay, she's kind of got that Jedi thing because she saw the ultimate dark side. She did not give in to that guy. And so she's kind of past that crucible, so to speak. But, it's a little, as we say, everything with Rey has been different than any Jedi that I've read or seen so far. With that, I'm not saying she's a Jedi per se, even though the movie says she's the next Jedi. Luke says it basically right there.
Mm-hmm.
The light user, if we want to use that term, her whole storyline and her aspect of she can do things that no one's ever been able to do. There's still a lot to explore there, and I think they're going to come out with filling those gaps as these movies go along.
Well, one thing that people have a problem with, and you could easily fight, is that we have to grade this on a bell curve, alright? So, Anakin, too old to train, right? He's like 8. That's way too old. Does perfectly fine, right? Best Jedi that they've ever seen. And then you take a look at Luke, he's too old. He's like freaking 18, and then he's able to do just fine. And Rey's even older.
Yeah, and the very first thing she does is not a thing with the shield of her eyes over it and try to block the little bolts coming out of her. Her very first action with the lightsaber is to fight the apprentice Dark Lord guy and beat him.
Well, she is trained with the staff, and you can see that she's kind of using the lightsaber as a staff with the pokes that she does.
Well, I think that's a valid point there, but it's a little bit different, but at least you're right. She's not a novice on fighting with something that has long reach. And
clearly she is strong with the Force, stronger than she knows, as Kylo says in The Force Awakens. But the Force needs to balance it out with Kylo and Snoke being a thing, that they need to make Rey powerful. There needs to be an awakening to combat the dark. So I really don't have an issue with everybody's Mary Sue argument. Luke bullseyed womp rats in its B-16 in a desert planet. Yeah, that's the same as proton torpedoing with an X-Wing and a little duct and a Death Star. Nobody gave freaking people shit for that. No one ever says that, oh, these men are Mary Sue. If Rey was a man, no one would have any problem with her being able to do what she does. But the fact that she's a woman, oh, she's a Mary Sue.
Well, I think part of that, just to play devil's advocate, is even with Luke, he had Obi-Wan a little bit. And so he had some kind of training where basically she is so raw and so powerful. And one of the problems with somebody with so much power, if you don't give them some kind of guidance, it can go really bad really fast because they have to have a sounding board, like I said before. And so I'm curious what they're going to do for her. You can't all of a sudden say now she's a Jedi Master because she's the only one.
No, you can't.
And so there still has to be some kind of philosophy aspect because let's face it, people you can get a shoot 'em up, bang 'em up anywhere. This one happens to be in space. But one of the things that brings Star Wars together is this whole Force business, the good, the light, the evil, the balance. And so philosophy is part of this whole universe which ties it together. And so these coming up movies, you still need to have that kind of philosophical argument, the yin and the yang, so to speak. And so you need to have something and somebody with her. Whether it's the old wise person that she meets in a cave somewhere down the line, who's a secret Jedi or something of that nature, or Luke coming back in spirit form, I still feel that probably, or it's likely for them to have something of that nature in the coming movies.
Right. She's by no means a Jedi Master. She didn't train like Anakin, and Luke was only on Dagobah for maybe a couple months at the most, and, coming back after, Bespin, he clearly didn't get the training that, Anakin or Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon or Dooku did. But, and you can't say that, Rey is, okay, now she can do anything because, she fought Snoke or whatever. But she just needs to fight Kylo, and she's clearly his equal.
Oh yeah, they've made that very clear.
On the light side, so she doesn't need to be, Clone Wars Obi-Wan amazing.
She beat him once and tied him another time.
Yeah, and I mean, there's people still have a problem with, how could she beat this dude that's been trained the dark side after picking up a lightsaber for the first time? So many people are glossing over so many Star Wars things about Star Wars.
Well, Snoke mentioned it.
Yes, he did.
He said you lost because the conflict, because you killed your father, you were torn apart, and therefore were more susceptible to be beaten by her.
Exactly. He killed Han, that broke a part of him, and he gets shot by a fucking bowcaster.
Yeah, it's not exactly like he just came from a day spa. This guy was injured.
Yes, and you do see him pound on his wound to create more pain because Sith thrive on pain. The dark side thrives on anger, fear, and pain. So he's doing that to make himself stronger. He's unfocused. He didn't have his training complete, as Snoke says to Hux at the end of The Force Awakens, when you bring him to me so I can complete his training. And Kylo was emotional. He was broken down, and he was injured, and he still wanted to turn Rey.
Yes.
You need a teacher. I can show you. And Rey is kind of coming into her own. A nobody stormtrooper held his own against Kylo Ren for a few seconds. No one had a problem with that. Yeah, and yes, he was trained in his little, stun batons because, he's part of the FN program, trained with Nines, the guy who says traitor and all that. And we get to see him fight with Phasma, which of course people have a problem with because it's the whole Boba Fett thing. We got this cool character that just dies. And then some people are like, how come everyone's armor is made out of her armor? Because it's made from Palpatine's Naboo yacht. We knew that before Force Awakens came out, people. So there's a reason that the laser just deflect right off of her and why that stuff's not available to everybody. But it made sense how the Force Awakens duel went down, and they were both evenly matched in the Force, and there was one lightsaber in between them that broke, and then the Mon Calamari ship with Admiral Holdo Hyperspace blows everything up, and Rey is able to escape. So,
by the way, the lightsaber being torn apart, I think, was very symbolic with what they were trying to hit.
Absolutely.
It started. That was Anakin's lightsaber, the beginning of the Anakin Skywalker line.
Yeah,
he got that lightsaber. You're a Jedi. You're the Force user, and now it's broken apart. Now Luke is gone. Just another little emphasis that the Skywalker line is done. Now we're starting with the next generation of powerful dark users and light users. Kylo Ren's on one side, even though, of course, we know he does have a tie to the Skywalker line, like I said earlier. And then we have her. So I think it was broken apart on purpose to give us that visualization of this is over. Now we're starting over.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that lightsaber is incredibly significant. The fact that it belonged to Anakin, it belonged to Luke. And we've known for a long time that originally The Force Awakens were supposed to open on Luke's severed hand with the lightsaber floating out in space. And then it's supposed to enter in the atmosphere of maybe Jakku or another planet, and the hand burns up, and then there's the lightsaber and somebody picks it up. We know from the trailers of The Force Awakens that there was originally a scene where Maz gives the saber to Leia. We know all of this for a fact, so we know that there was different revisions on how the lightsaber was introduced, how it's exchanging hands. That's another story for another time that Maz says to Han, which some people have a problem with. That's perfectly understandable. His hand gets chopped off with Bespin. Maybe it falls into a duct and someone finds it and exchanges hands and Maz somehow gets her hands on it. But that lightsaber is very, very symbolic of this trilogy transitioning from the original to who owned it and how it came to being to go from Anakin to Luke to Rey, which is how the story has gone. It was Anakin's story, starting with the Phantom Menace, if we're going chronologically through the Star Wars timeline, not, us here in the year 2017. Because this happened a long, long time ago. And to Luke having it, losing it, constructing his own lightsaber, which we know is a deleted scene from the beginning of the Return of the Jedi, where he's constructing his own green lightsaber. And now it ends up being Rey's, thematically makes sense. And like you said, it being destroyed, is a metaphor for the Star Wars story, which we have known up until this time to be the Skywalker family drama.
Correct. And so now we have the anticipation of Rey coming out with her own new beginning.
She's not a Skywalker. It's her own.
New birth. And so she's going to come up with her own lightsaber. Let's face it, that is the symbol of the powerful.
She can still use that crystal, that kyber crystal from that lightsaber.
Because she has half of that. Or she had both parts.
Yeah, she had both parts.
And here's a chance for...
And she has the books. Maybe there's something in there, maybe not.
It's going to happen. Let's face it, you're not going to have Star Wars without lightsabers being in it. It's just too much and too expected and too much enjoyed.
Right. They make $1 billion every year just off of toy lightsaber sales alone.
It's ridiculous to get rid of this. It's like having an astronaut movie with no spaceships. So, and here I'm talking about spaceships in a spaceship movie. So what is hers going to look like? What color is it going to be?
Well, based off of the kyber crystal, it would still be blue.
But who knows what they're going to do with that? And who knows what she's going to do in her adventures? And they can explain that away. Is it going to be a brand new blue one? Is it going to be a green one? Is it going to be all of a sudden purple again? Because it's different. So people are going to get excited. They're looking they want the impact of the audience. They want the punches, just like the whole hypership exploding into his ship. They're going to have her powering up her lightsaber the first time, and people are going to ooh and ah, and they're not going to miss that opportunity in the coming.
And she could have it integrated within her staff to have it, because we've seen, in the extended universe where there are really long pole arms that have a smaller lightsaber end piece to it. She could do that because she's mostly trained on the staff. It could just be a normal lightsaber. I think it's still going to be blue because that's the kyber crystal of Luke's lightsaber, and that's the only kyber crystal that we know she can get her hands on. Nobody can complain that she can make her own lightsaber because Luke does it before Return of the Jedi.
Yes, he does,
without any training. He didn't talk to Yoda about it, and he didn't read any ancient Jedi text.
And Vader says, "Oh, you constructed your own. Your training is complete." Because I guess that's the true thing. You become a Jedi when you're able to, because it makes it seem like only Jedi can create these things.
Yes.
So therefore, if lack of a better thing, you can say she was guided by the Force to create this thing.
Yeah, because how else did Luke do it?
Exactly.
I mean, she, has her own talent. She can integrate it into her staff if she wants. I honestly don't know if you need 2 kyber crystals to make a dual-bladed lightsaber. I'm not too sure about that.
Are they going to be worried about the Darth Maul business? I'm not sure. But she has the staff. We know she's expert at this thing. So it does still make some sense with her. But they may not want to lose the whole lightsaber business symbology. But then again, here's a whole brand new toy that they can market.
Right. And
that's why my gut tells me it's going to be a different color.
She would have to find a different kyber crystal because, I mean, we in the EU, we knew how the kyber crystals were, why the red ones were synthetic, and that's why the Sith had all theirs.
Where did Luke get his to create his green lightsaber? They didn't show that. They just showed him showing up with it. So why can't they have her showing up with
it? It could be in the text on which planet or planets, since, now everything's new, have kyber crystals. So it could be a new color, or it could be 2 colors. She could use the blue one and have a different color if she wants. That's obviously not been decided yet.
That's why I think there might be a possible argument. Once I said, remember, to me, it looks like she amplifies the balance. Mm-hmm. And you have red for the Sith Lords, you have blue for the Force users. I know there's more than blue color, but that's what we symbolize with. Mm-hmm. And so, what is the mixture of those 2 colors that we have seen before?
Well,
and we have seen purple. It makes sense.
The Jedi Sentinels in the EU used both light and dark side forces. They are Jedi, but they use both powers of each side. They carry orange lightsabers. That's what the Sentinels would use.
And we haven't seen that yet.
No, we haven't even seen yellow.
I'm just saying there's a possibility, and like I said, let's face it, they are geared towards making a movie and a story, but they also, let's face it, in marketing and creating new things and something that hasn't shown up before. And it also would amplify that she's her own brand new person with all brand new powers.
Kylo had his own new lightsaber.
Own lightsaber. And so I'd expect hers to look not just like a replica of the blue one, because people are going to say, and it's possible that she fixes it.
Right.
Because she has both halves.
Yeah.
So she repairs it. And actually, I can see them making sense because there's the raw elements, everything's together. She just basically gets some parts and makes it whole again.
Yeah.
I personally would like to see a brand new lightsaber with a brand new Rey moving forward than a repaired old lightsaber. Especially since they went to the trouble of breaking it.
Right. So, I think it's well established and a good thing that Rey's parents are nobodies. It makes...
If they keep it that way or not.
They definitely could change if they want. You know, that none of this is set in stone per se, but it makes perfect sense. We take a look at the flashback when she touches Luke's lightsaber, where she's left on Jakku with Unkar Plot. Her being sold to him makes perfect sense within that image. Otherwise, why is he there? Yeah. If she's not being sold as a junker slave, then why would someone entrust a girl in a faithful manner to this dude? It only makes sense within that context. And B, it separates her from the original trilogy, that her parents are anybody that we already knew. Even though some people, no matter what, will not accept the fact that, you know, she's not Luke or Lando's or Mace Windu's daughter or something. It makes sense
this. Look at all your famous religious prophets or people that come. They always come from no one. Mm-hmm. They're just some humble mother and father or nowhere. All of a sudden, there's this prophet, there's this Messiah, there's all these different things. They always come from a humble, not knowing beginning. So that makes sense too, that hers would come from nowhere. And maybe part of the storyline is every little movie, she's hunting down her origins a little bit here, a little bit there.
I mean, Kylo says that they're just dead. You know, they're in a grave somewhere in Jakku.
In a pauper's field or something of that nature.
Yeah. And I don't, there's no reason for them to renege on that.
Anakin came from nowhere.
Yeah, like I said, Anakin came from nowhere, Luke seemingly came from nowhere, and Rey came from nowhere. So
it fits.
Yeah, I think it fits, and it's good for the story and the narrative, and she doesn't have to have parents that were in a movie in the 70s. So let's go back to Luke, because that is one of the most contentious things that people have about the film, and the fact that he was an angry old codger, which I think makes sense within the story that they're trying to tell. You know, he was raising this new generation of Jedi. He failed Kylo, and he took the Knights of Ren, which we still don't know anything about. You know, took some of them and killed everybody else. And people are saying that, you know, Luke wouldn't be weak. This isn't the Luke from The Last Jedi. And we've even heard Mark Hamill say that this wasn't the Luke that he knew from the original trilogy. Still giving credit to what he thought the movie needed to be. And when talking to Ryan about, you know, why don't we do this? This is what the fans want. And Ryan would say something to the fact of, we should do what we want. And so there is definitely that conflict, and I don't think Luke was perfectly handled every way, but for the story that they wanted to show, I felt that everything was acceptable. He clearly went to that island to die, says so himself. We do see the X-Wing, which I think at this point in time would be inoperable. He's pulled it from Dagobah before, we know, but it wasn't in there for a long time, and I think that Luke would make sure that there was no way that he could leave. He wouldn't be tempted.
Right. And I said earlier to us, before this taping, I think they showed us the X-Wing on purpose to give us a reason to believe, how did he make it to this planet to save everybody? Because we didn't know until the end that he wasn't really there. So they had to give us a way for him to get there. And so that's why I think they showed us the X-Wing to put that in our heads.
Right, but how would he know where to go?
Because he's Luke Skywalker. How did he know to get there anyhow? He projected himself there.
Right.
Because of Leia.
Right, because of Leia. And so people have, there might be, some missing information here. How does Rey get to Snoke's ship? Finn has the little bracelet thing from Leia, yet she knows how to get to Snoke. Is it because of the bridge that he made with Kylo?
Yeah, that's one of the possible things. Once again, Snoke said he created that connection. So if you created that connection, it's reasonable to say that she basically could be guided like the Force, kind of like in the way Luke was guided to Leia.
Yeah. So some people have a problem, like, how does she find that? And a little bit of a gray area there, but I think the Snoke made Kylo connection is the best way to make that. But I think that Luke wouldn't have given himself an out of that planet. He definitely seemed very hard set. Took a couple of days of refusing Rey before he would basically even have a conversation with her. It took until she clearly had a connection with the Force to find that tree to have him ask, "Who the hell are you? You clearly have a connection with the Force if you were drawn to this tree." And the fact that the surprise of his projection at the end, you could say he would have or wouldn't have had a lightsaber. It definitely looked a lot like his old lightsaber that Rey was in possession of.
And he's basically projecting this. It was meant for Kylo to see.
Yes. And which made me think, why wouldn't he use a green lightsaber? Because that's the last lightsaber that Kylo saw that he had.
I was wondering why he didn't project it as a green one myself.
So that was a little weird.
Maybe they forgot to change the color in post-production.
It would have been a different hilt. So people are upset that there wasn't some grand Luke battle, and I think Luke kind of addresses that, where, what do you expect me to do? Take a laser sword and just fight off the entire First Order? He couldn't even do that. He may be Luke Skywalker, and he might be, I know in the EU he was easily the strongest Jedi of all time, and he still might have been. We didn't really get to see. He did show one power that we've never seen before that is clearly very powerful, very strenuous on the body, and was probably a big factor in him dying afterwards. Although I think it's quite clear, like Obi-Wan and Yoda, that he released. Because Obi-Wan wasn't killed, because there was no cut.
No.
He just disappears when the robe falls. The robe wasn't sliced in half. Obi-Wan, holds the lightsaber close to him and then goes. Vader's confused and he's like stepping on it. Yoda just goes and the blanket slowly falls down. Luke goes and his robe flies away. So that was definitely, I think, in each part a choice where they were gonna die anyway. Obi-Wan was gonna get struck down by Vader. Yoda was gonna die of old age. And Luke was gonna die on that island.
And it fits into some religions that we have nowadays where he is ready to now transition to the next plane.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore dematerialized. He was done with this mortal coil, for lack of a better term, and has transitioned. And it goes to fit because they still exist. Yoda still exists. Obi-Wan still exists in the spirit realm of the Force or something of that nature. It's not like their consciousness is gone. So Luke is just transitioning from this part to a different level, if you will.
Right.
Possibly, anyway.
Yes. And I don't know if they'll have him come back as a Force
But they definitely
ghost.
can.
They definitely can, and he would be able to because, he's Luke. Yoda clearly taught Obi-Wan how to do it after the Revenge of the Sith, or gave him some sort of guidance because he talks about Qui-Gon. And obviously Yoda's able to do it. And then we see at the end of Jedi, Anakin there, looking the way that he was before he became a Sith, which makes sense from the narrative standpoint, instead of having him be this dude who we've never seen in that way before, because we only saw him, once the helmet gets taken off, and seeing him without that makeup and look like a normal dude, just kind of a little out of place. So I think the Anakin switch there with Hayden Christensen makes sense, because that's the last time he was a good person.
Yes, I understand the point, yes.
Even though he did have that, redeeming end of, killing the Emperor. But, so they could bring back Luke. I can understand if they didn't, because of letting go of the past, and maybe, and Yoda talking to Luke that she doesn't need anything that those texts have. So maybe Luke might think that she doesn't need him.
Or, for all we know, Yoda might come back. I mean, she doesn't know him, but he can still come back and, she'll feel who he is, so to speak. And they can do that forever and a day.
Yeah, and we don't know the limitations
Frank
about
is still around.
all those things.
They may not do that at all. All I'm saying is they leave.
Because people are like, why didn't Ghost Anakin go to Kylo and be like, yo, grandson, you fucking up. I made some mistakes, but I came back.
But you notice they only do this ghost stuff on the light side.
Yeah.
They've never shown it on the dark side. Not saying it can't happen, but they've never shown it.
Yeah, you're not going to see Darth Revan or Bane or anything.
Yeah, and why would they come back? Hey, you killed me. You can take my spot. Hey, let me give you some guidance now.
Yeah. I mean, so many people, I think, are just hooked on their fan theories of Snoke is Darth Plagueis. I know it. Rey is the son or the daughter of, that guy with the ice cream machine on Cloud City. And, all these things. So, the purists are never going to be happy.
Oh, no matter what you do.
No matter what it is.
And if you make those ones that are happy that we're unhappy, you'll start make the other ones that were happy unhappy, vice versa. Because it didn't go the way they had it in their head. Right.
And I've even read reviews that people were like, this movie isn't about Han, Luke, and Leia. Boo! That's not the story. That's not the movie. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, and you're not going to have them forever anyhow. They are, let's face it, one just died. The other ones are getting older. They don't necessarily want to do it. So they were probably brought back saying, hey, we just want to tie this up and to move on to the next generation. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah. And whether, it's not what Lucas, had in mind if he was going to continue. It's not what Hamill or Carrie or Harrison had in mind if they were ever to come back and do it. But it's within the hands of the people that Disney gives the power to. I definitely trust Amy Hennig in her decisions. And while The Last Jedi I didn't like as much as The Force Awakens, I didn't think it was a terrible movie that ruined Star Wars, that was as bad as Jar Jar and pod racing and sand that gets everywhere. But I definitely had some issues with it that I didn't have with any other Star Wars film. And even at the ending, it just seemed very bleak and hopeless. It was just kind of like well, what do we do now, guys? Everything sucks. It didn't feel like the end of Empire or New Hope or Jedi or Force Awakens or...
Very much came to, this is over.
Rogue One.
We have to destroy everything. Just like in Kylo said, you kill the past to start a beginning. In essence, that's what this movie did.
Yeah.
They killed the past. Once again, for my little heavy-handed, because they said it more than once and they verbally showed it. They killed the past, and what are they showing? They're showing a little kid who has some powers in the Force to move a broom. He's holding his broom to have a symbolic lightsaber in his hands, looking out the sky, kind of like Luke would do. And they're showing, here's the new beginning. Like they said, it's not the end. This is the beginning of it.
People. A lot of purists hated Force Awakens because it was too much like A New Hope. Some people hated The Last Jedi because it was way too different. And some people thought it was way too much alike Empire. So there's no pleasing these people. Star Wars fans are the most hateful group of the thing that they say they love out of any fandom that I've ever encountered, which I made a whole video about a couple years ago. But
I think the next Star Wars movie is, to me, going to be the more interesting. These movies were tying up loose ends.
Yeah.
This next movie, to me, is now this is the direction which we're going to go. So is that going to be a strong enough mythology, a strong enough storyline to carry it on 30 years like the previous one did, or not? So if this is tying up loose ends, you can like or dislike, but this other one's going to be on its own now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit tie-on because it's the same universe, but they're going to create a whole new thing. Is that going to be strong enough on its own merit, its own little storyline to move a baseline this way forward?
Right. You can't just have a new Thor. It's like, oh, now I'm Thor. Now I'm Thor. Well, how about we make a different hero that doesn't just piggyback on Thor's name? in a sense. It's just, is keeping the same mantle over and over again, creating something new. Now, we've heard that it doesn't seem like Daisy Ridley's gonna be on past this next movie. We know Rian Johnson's been giving his own trilogy, which I think is okay, even though I wasn't a huge fan of The Last Jedi. I think it's okay for him to do with a new trilogy all that he wants, that he can create his own thing. Even though, like, I didn't like his previous work, like Looper, which I know I'm in the minority in. And it wasn't just because of plot holes and stuff. And I know there's different ways that he likes to tell his stories, which I thought didn't fit Star Wars as well as what JJ did. And I'm really glad that he's going to be on for the next one, especially since I'm not a fan of Trevorrow's work at all. So I'm glad that JJ is back. But once again, people were like, all right, JJ Abrams made the Star Wars movie. Boo, he ruined Star Wars. Rian Johnson's here. Boo, he ruined Star Wars. Make it not canon. Don't let JJ Abrams get back. He's going to ruin it. And then it's like, all right, JJ Abrams is going to fix everything now that it's just, there's just so many people with so many wrong, conflicting opinions that just go to show that they aren't educated about Star Wars, that they just aren't educated. You're allowed not to like stuff. We both voiced things that we didn't like about the movie, about pacing or storylines or what characters did, but, attacking the movie because it wasn't, Han and Boba Fett making out isn't like a real thing that you can argue with, because that's never what it was gonna be. It's not gonna be your fan fiction that you made when you were 8 years old. And there's no reason for it to be that. No, it's not the extended universe. You guys got Admiral Thrawn back in the canon. That's fine and dandy. I mean, you'll never be pleased, and there is going to be supplementary material. Ever since Aftermath, there's more supplementary material. We got the Poe Dameron comics, and we got to see other things filled in. So there's always going to be supplementary material. There's always going to be more things to read up on. We'll learn more about Snoke eventually, even though people are always going to be mad, even though they weren't mad about this character that went out the same way or this character that went out the same way.
Oh, the thing is, there's going to be something new they're going to get to be mad about, and then they're forgetting about Snoke. Doesn't seem any likelihood that this series is going to jump the shark anytime soon. And regardless of people liking it or disliking it, guess what? They're going to see the next one.
Oh, yeah.
And chances are they're going to see it more than once. And guess what? They're going to see the one after that.
And we'll only see it 8 more times today.
Exactly. And so that's how brilliant Disney was in grabbing this, because it has legs. And part of the enjoyment, I think, is the people arguing about what they liked and disliked and hoping they'll get their little thing next time, or they enjoy the conflict. They enjoy that part also. They're going to be slick. They're going to be putting money in these productions. They're going to be doing something of, whether you like it or not, of a quality type of nature. Mm-hmm. And so this thing's going to continue.
Yeah, it had the second biggest opening of all time, and there were some people like, they ruined Star Wars. Hopefully they're not going to make much money off of this, and Disney's going to realize their mistake. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it is ludicrous. And that same person is going to see the next one, I guarantee, if for no reason other than to look forward to complaining about it.
Yeah.
On their blog.
Another woman? Fuck this!
And like I said, the people complaining about it are also going on in age. And every time they come out with a new one, they're creating yet another new generation of fans. Mm-hmm. They're going to follow it on, who to them, Rey is the shit, because she is the one. And who's this old guy that was in that movie a little bit? I don't know who he is. Skywalker something. It's all about Rey. And then so forth down the line. It's going to keep building. Every time it comes out, a new set of base fans, who, after a while, they're going to look at the old stuff like they're watching It's a Wonderful Life on TV. It's just something, oh yeah, everyone on that movie is dead now. And so it's just going to keep
Yeah, exactly. I made this point in my rant video. You're not going to like The Force Awakens because you're not 10 anymore. Every 10-year-old loved A New Hope when it came out. Guess what? Every 10-year-old loved Phantom Menace when it came out.
Yes.
And those kids that grew up with the prequels liked those movies, maybe now can reflect on it and see that they weren't perfect. They're still going to be nostalgic for it. They can like both trilogies and all three trilogies.
There's some good saber usage in those movies.
Absolutely. There was good things that the special edition did, whether you want to admit it or not. There were good things in the prequels, and there are good things in this trilogy. Even, I can admit, in The Last Jedi, which didn't meet the expectations that I had for it.
But they never will. But it doesn't mean they can't be enjoyed in their own way, even if it's not what we would have wanted in our head. They never will be what we wanted in our head. They might meet us or not meet us, back and forth between movie. I like this one 80%, I like this one 60%, but we're still invested into it. Mm-hmm. And we're still going to find aspects that we enjoy, and we're still going to enjoy talking about the parts we enjoyed. And
it's still Star Wars,
and it still is Star Wars.
There's a 50-year-old man out there watching the Lego Star Wars show because it's Star Wars. I gotta see it.
I
don't like it, but I have to watch it.
Yeah, and
I'll like a little bit of it.
The same thing with the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
If there's parts of it are canon, guess what? You may not like it, but you gotta watch it because you gotta be knowledgeable about this whole history.
I hate the prequels, but I really loved in the cartoon when Darth Maul came back. It's like, yeah, it's Star Wars. You're gonna like something, some things you're gonna dislike other things. There are gonna things that are gonna be objectively bad like Jar Jar, and there are gonna be some things that are objectively good like Lando Calrissian because he's awesome.
And people will enjoy the bad things because that's something they can make fun of, and you'll see it on sitcoms making fun of those things that aren't enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And the machine's gonna roll on, and they're going to make new characters all the time because they need that machine to continue to roll.
Yeah. So, it'll be very interesting to see what they do with the next movie. With JJ coming back, Carrie's gone. Where do they go with the story, with the Resistance, their friends in the Outer Rim? With Iden's daughter.
Now, they have no fleet whatsoever. So I think we're going to be more of a beginning level, little behind the scenes stuff. It's not like they're going to go head to head with the powerful First Order.
Yeah. And we know with, when Iden was on that Star Destroyer that they are spread wide, and Rey says to Luke that, they're going to take over the whole galaxy. So we know that their reach is far and further than the Empire was in their reach, and with Project Resurrection picking up all these stormtroopers. So the Star Wars fans have some odd complaints. Sometimes I don't like the pacing or the storyline. You can say that about any movie, and you're perfectly fine with saying that. But people are always gonna jump a ship. They're like, all right, I hope The Force Awakens is this. It's not that. I'm angry. But my theory is for the next one, it's going to be this, this, and this.
That's always good.
Guess what? It didn't meet my theories, so now I'm angry. But now I have new theories.
I have a new theory.
I bet Rey is a clone. And, Snoke isn't actually dead. But guess what? Both of those theories are going to be wrong, and they're going to get mad again.
Yeah, but then guess what? They just might come up with yet another theory that they have to hope for.
And they're, no, it's true. The Last Jedi never happened. It's not canon, even though it is.
It's not gonna be Bobby
It's a movie. Yeah. It's as canon as it can get.
Yes, it is canon. You may not like where this canon is pointing, but it is their canon. They have the wheel, and they're going to keep creating new mythology, new characters, a new way to forward, because they want this thing to live. They don't want to keep showing the old stuff over and over again. We're not going to see a 90-year-old Luke Skywalker battling with a lightsaber. It's just not going to happen. They're going to have to move on. And so you don't just cut them off, and then the next movie, here's all brand new characters. So here is the melding of them, where here's the old and the new. They're together for 2 movies, and now we're moving on forward with the new ones. It's may not be what you like to have, because you have that fond memory when you were younger. But guess what? It's reality, and it's what you have to do to move forward.
Yeah. No matter how much you love a fan fiction, it's not gonna be true, and you're gonna have to be okay with that. You could really love a Doctor Who fanfic, but it's never gonna come true, and you can still like Doctor Who even though it's not your fanfic. And the Star Wars is the same way. It's not, Jade Mara isn't gonna get a storyline because that just didn't happen. That's Legends. Chewbacca is not gonna sacrifice himself to save Han's twins. That's not gonna happen. That was cool story, well written, whatever. You can enjoy that, but it didn't happen.
I do have one theory that's going to happen next movie. I think there's a good chance that R2-D2 and C-3PO might be in it.
Ooh, that's bold.
I know.
That is bold.
I'm going out there.
I don't know about that. I'll have to go on YouTube and find some theory videos.
And see if anyone agrees. It might blow me out of the water.
I did love that scene. R2 only gets one scene, but it was a great scene where he brings out the Obi-Wan Kenobi, my only hope.
That was a dirty, what did he say? That was a dirty trick?
Yeah.
That was a dirty move. It was it's like the old friendship talking to each other.
It was what he needed to hear. Guess what? You're the only hope now.
Yeah.
Like what Obi-Wan did, that's what you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, he scored with that one. And then, of course, that's when he went to Rey and said, okay, now I'll teach you why it should go away.
And I think his lessons did show her what she needed to see, that there is a balance, and if there are no Jedi, the light doesn't disappear. Don't you see that? So what he says. Just because the Jedi are gone doesn't mean that there is no light.
Correct. It's because the Force does not rely upon individuals. The Force is there.
He was completely correct in his criticisms of the Jedi. That at the height of their power, Palpatine subverted them and destroyed them all.
Yes.
And a Jedi helped make that happen. And that part of that was the Jedi's fault, making them celibate and have to go to this strict code. Like I mentioned to you beforehand, like in Green Lantern, The Darkest Night, when everything starts going to shit and the Guardians make that new decree that Green Lanterns can't hold a partner anymore, that they can't have love, so hundreds of Green Lanterns give up their rings because that's not worth it. That's not what they signed up for. That's not what this is.
Yeah, what are they fighting for now? Just the individual concept because someone says that's what you should be? Or are you fighting because you want to make things better because you have loved ones and you want to make everything safer for them in the fold?
The ancient Jedi Sith battle may have ended up in the Jedi's favor, and it was good that the way that it happened, but it's an old, ancient, dead religion, and it needs to die. Because it's old and it doesn't work anymore, and it created the darkness.
Just like everything now. Once things go away, magazines were a thing. Now we got online stuff. Eventually things change and you have to adapt for it, or you're going to become so irrelevant and you're not going to work. And some things going, hey, this worked great. That's the way we've always done it. Yes, when it was 1962 or whatever you want to call it. Everything has to evolve. Everything has to eventually move over and change over. Nothing's going to stay the same way forever and a day.
And the Jedi way clearly doesn't work. Luke knew that. He was going to the first Jedi temple in search of answers after, basically having a very late midlife crisis, a crisis of faith after what happened with Kylo, his nephew.
Darth Vader, as you mentioned this to me, happened because of that rule and because they say this is what it is. So he had to keep his relationship with Padme secret. Yeah. And therefore it created the whole thing.
If he didn't have to keep that secret, he goes to Yoda and Obi-Wan for guidance and not Emperor Palpatine. And then guess what? Mace Windu doesn't die by being lightninged out of a window. And, Padme doesn't die of sadness. So Luke is absolutely right in that, the Jedi need to end in the way that they are.
And the books have been destroyed now, too.
No, Rey has the books. They're on the Falcon, remember?
Oh, did she have those?
Yeah, she has them on the Falcon. Remember when Finn gets a blanket for Rose?
Oh, yeah, now that you mention it. But she doesn't, not being told by some old crotchety guy, this is the way it has to be. She can take what she wants from that and move forward, since there's no one to argue with her about it.
Yeah, but and I know a lot of us wanted this to be Luke training Rey and getting her up to speed to Kylo's level, and then going toe to toe together against the First Order and Snoke and Kylo. That wasn't the direction that the story was going in the first place. So you need to have Rey be powerful. You need to have there be a balance. Luke isn't going to be around forever. You can't have this be Luke's second trilogy.
No.
So.
And Kylo's very flawed.
And there's no other Jedi.
I mean, he's not Snoke. He's not all powerful. He's flawed. So we can, in essence, get away with her being a little inexperienced because he's so flawed, yet he's the head of the Dark Order, for lack of a better term, as of this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, they they showed us how equal they are. So as long as both sides are equal, they don't have to be equal at level 10. They can be equal at level 5 or whatever level you want to say. But the foil one is not super over stronger than the other. He's strong in essence where he has the machinery, the mechanism, the First Order behind him, where she has a handful of people on one ship. But as far as the Force is concerned, they're the yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm. And we've been told, in every single movie from Obi-Wan saying it in the original trilogy to Yoda saying it in the prequels to Luke saying it, that there is a balance and that has to be struck. And, Luke was this stubborn non-believer guy that Yoda had to crack. Rey was already an open, free person, free in spirit. She was always hopeful that her parents were going to come back. She was hopeful that, you're with Resistance. You're part of this big thing that's...
But yet she's not naive Luke teenager who just wants to go with his friends.
Yes.
She survived because of her own
She
wits.
wanted to believe.
She's more developed as an adult, if you will.
Yes.
Because she's self-sufficient, taking care of herself.
She doesn't want, I just want to go to the Tashi station and get some power converters.
Yeah,
that's not her.
She already starts off at a higher maturity level than Luke.
Yes, very much so. And her training with her brief little lessons with Luke, she's able to feel the connection of the Force, and she inherently is a bit more hopeful than Luke was, even though she still has, had that temptation to the dark. She still, for a moment, believed that Kylo can turn, even though it seems at this present moment that he is absolutely stuck in his ways and is kind of like Aiden's father, dedicated so much to the First Order that, this is all that I know. I'm gonna win, or I'm gonna go down on this side. So, I think Rey's journey is perfectly acceptable from a narrative standpoint, and similar and different to Luke's in ways that you can't really attack her abilities. She had heard the stories about the Force, and Han says they're all true. She had clearly heard that Jedi mind tricks were a thing, or she wouldn't have tried it on Daniel Craig Stormtrooper. So she'd heard about it. She's like, I've heard of this. Let me try it. And it works because she believes, unlike Luke, who was like, I can't see a thing with this blast shield. How am I supposed to fight?
Yeah. And you can show these legends. Let's fast forward to the end, where the little kids are already replaying Luke Skywalker standoff to the First Order. And here's Luke Skywalker, and then you see the Tauntauns are there like that, and the kids are already telling the story of Luke Skywalker sacrificing himself, it looks like, to everybody else.
I think that could have been the original trilogy story that they were saying.
But I'm saying they pass on that story made it to that planet.
Exactly.
And so things are getting passed on and passed on.
There's a lot of people that come to that and then they tell them stories or whatever.
Legends, our history is replenished with mythology and legends and things of this nature. It's what Santa Claus is himself, is a legend. So, we still know about Zeus because the mythology that's in there. So it makes perfect sense. The powerful creatures of the past, and the stories might change a little bit from telling to telling, but that people would be aware of that, just like Rey was. She knew. And there's also some evidence because you see she's wearing a rebel helmet. Mm-hmm. And she's sitting in a crashed Emperor vehicle, so Empire vehicle.
AT-AT Walker.
Yeah, so there's physical evidence of this stuff happening in the past, and she got confirmation of what these things actually did happen, and therefore she's more readily able to, through her own feelings and her experiences, to believe it.
Yeah, Luke wanted to join the Empire at the beginning of A New Hope. He wanted to join maybe I can get to join the Academy next year. Or this year, if I don't, stay on for this moisture farming season, however the hell that works, and drink less blue milk and drink some green milk on a weird planet where there's porgs who are great. So the characters are different in their upbringing and attitudes and maturity and belief systems. And I think that's definitely exemplified when Rey physically reaches out and Luke touches her with the little leaf. Yeah, I can feel it. She's ready to believe.
And that was actually one of the better, funnier points in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So there were things that were handled well in the movie. I thought there were some missteps, some pacing issues in the Finn Rose storyline. Could have easily have not happened and not had any impact, but subverting the crazy plan always goes right was fine. The whole DJ, Benicio del Toro character, I wasn't a fan of.
The character's going to show up again, because he's that middle ground kind of guy. Yeah. He'll go with whoever's winning at the time for himself, and more than likely he'll probably show up.
It seemed really weird that his character and that whole storyline on that planet.
Well, let's face it, we've had this before for a little bit. What is the character I'm trying to think of on Bisden?
Bespin?
Lando. What did Lando do? Oh, you're fine and dandy. Oh, the Empire got here ahead of time. Yeah. I cut a deal with them. They're going to leave us alone. They want this Luke guy. Mm-hmm. You're going to leave him here. So what did this guy do? Very Lando-ish, where he was with them. Hey, we got caught.
Yeah,
this wasn't working for me. I cut a deal. Mm-hmm. That's what Lando did.
Yeah.
The only difference between him and Lando is before the movie was over, Lando go, this is going wrong.
Yeah, this isn't what we agreed to, Vader.
And now I'm changing it. Where this guy, that part didn't happen. Yeah. But up to that point, him and Lando didn't do anything different.
Yeah. It was like, they blow you up today, maybe you blow them up tomorrow.
Lando's a general hero of the rebellion, right?
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to go on with this character, too.
Yeah, he definitely is a dirty, no good, rotten scoundrel.
We're able to forgive somebody who killed a whole bunch of kids.
Yeah. I get to be a Force ghost because I threw an old man down a shaft.
Yeah, exactly. That forgives everything else.
Yeah.
But yet, we're going to throw this guy in the coals because he cut a deal because he was already caught for these two people. Mm-hmm. I mean, so how come one guy's forgiven and one... I'm not saying we should forgive him. All I'm saying is he's not necessarily the evilest of evil. He was basically taking a choice, not because he believed in doing evil stuff, but he was just saving his own hide.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he did a good thing. Don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is it's not like he's an irredeemable thing they won't do with him later, possibly.
Yeah, so like I said, there are problems that I've had with the movie, but like with the big things that the fanboys seem to be harking on, seem to be like a bit, off base and inconsistent with other storylines and characters. But like, why did Snoke have to die? I can't believe Rey didn't have, famous parents. The connection with Rey and Kylo, some people were kind of on board with, but then, got tired of it or didn't like it at all to begin with because there's clearly tension between the two or whatever. And, can't believe Leia flew using the Force. Like, some of those things are just really nitpicky just because they didn't fit your fan theory on your blog.
Yeah, it's not, doesn't sound like it's the complaint that it was done badly. It's just that it wasn't done in the way I wanted it to be done.
Yeah. And there are people that complain, that have legitimate complaints and, very arguable, stances to have. But all in all, it was a very different step. It was the most different Star Wars movie. A lot of people said that about Rogue One, and that was, easy to attribute to, but I thought this one was even more different in how they did with the characters and the pacing and things not working out and still being bleak at the end. I mean, Luke did do that crazy, awesome, powerful thing. A bunch of lasers shot him, and it was somewhat forgivable. He's like, that's Luke Skywalker. He could survive that.
I was waiting for the explanation. I knew there would be an explanation if I could just continue to watch.
Yeah.
And of course there was.
Yeah. And his, he was avoiding Kylo so that, he wouldn't, so that he could buy them more time.
And that explains that part too.
But he was kind of moving like Yoda. you know, in his movements there a little bit. So, I mean, that was kind of...
I have to admit, I'm guilty as anybody else. I have my expectations and wants and desires. I wanted a little bit more Luke Skywalker being the badass because he's the Master Jedi. A little bit, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, this is just the way they decided to go. And what he did do was just as powerful as if he went there and took out, 100 guys with his lightsaber. That would be probably technically a lot more easy to do than what he did. Reaching across the galaxy like that would have been a great deal more different, so much so that it drained him of all his life force and he had to go away.
Right, and some people were like, well, why couldn't he just fly there and then just do all that but get killed by Kylo or whatever? And it's like, well, Luke was right when he says he can't just go out there with a laser sword and just deflect all those AT-AT fighters. That's not something that he could have actually survived when he does the whole brush off the shoulder thing, which was funny. There's clearly a reason that he couldn't do that. And, maybe he could have, defeated Kylo, whether that's what he wanted to do or not, or felt that he was right with the Force or whatever. But he still accomplished what needed to be done.
To keep everything alive that was most important. He saved his sister. Let's face it, that's a driving force. Saved the resistance and the light side. And he accomplished that. And like I said, it's not less impressive. Maybe it's not the fun part that the little kid me wanted to see, but I can't say it's not more impressive force use wise.
Yes. It was very understandable that, yeah, Luke might be the most powerful Jedi ever, or right now, or at least be up there, but there's still limitations.
And I gotta admit, when he disappeared and I saw him floating above that rock, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's a powerful guy. I mean, that's the first thing that came out. Look at that powerful thing he just did. The part that part of me didn't want to see was him fading away, because I gotta admit, I would have been fine with this all thing that he did if he was still around, because then I said, okay, I can still possibly see that stuff. But obviously, they felt they had to do this
to move
on to the new generational people, so they had to leave that out. I mean, I would have liked to have seen that. I agree, the whole training Rey business, but they're going a different route. I still imagine there's going to be some kind of consultation, guidance thing for Rey somehow down the line.
Especially since it can't be Leia because Carrie's gone.
And Carrie's gone, and it can't be Leia. And let's face it, she's not a Jedi-trained person whatsoever. Who knows how they're going to do it, or if they're going to do it at all. Maybe they won't. And maybe, like I said, we all have our expectations. But I really can't say I'm disappointed, because what they did, they did. And it made sense to the story that they wanted to say and to move forward. And regardless of how I felt about this, the good parts, the parts I didn't care for, I am all very much looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's what it is, because you like this universe, you like things go. We all want certain things in our life. They never go the way we want. Doesn't mean we're going to end our life the next day. You still have hope for, let's see what happens tomorrow. And that's what we're waiting for the next movie.
See, at the end of the movie, I thought he was a projection. Until 3PO said Master Luke. I was like, oh, he's actually there. I thought he was just projecting himself to Leia because, that was his sister, and, he wanted to connect to her. I was like, he's not really there. He can't be really there. And then 3PO was like, Master Luke. I was like, oh, okay, so he's there. That's what sold me.
But it was such a powerful projection. It was more than just a hologram, less than physical form. It was a next level projection, if you will.
And then Poe and everyone else said like, oh, what's Luke doing out there? So like, that definitely hooked me in there. And it's like, all right, so this is how he's gonna go out in a blaze of glory, for lack of a better term, and obviously confront Kylo, because there needs to be that confrontation between master and apprentice, especially with the way that things ended with them.
Kylo ran off because he didn't get any satisfaction, and he was like, I was duped. And so it was a more fitting end for Kylo's frustration part than as if he struck Luke down. Because, and also, he never defeated Luke this way either.
Yeah.
Luke never did lose. And then that's also fitting for a Jedi Master who's
above the anger, above all these other things, who has the big picture in mind.
It's like winning the Super Bowl and then retiring. You can't be beaten now.
Yes.
I tricked you, and now peace out, I'm a ghost.
Yes.
Now you can't beat me. You're not gonna be Vader, and you couldn't beat me.
I'm undefeated.
Yeah.
And you'll never forget that, and you'll never be able to beat me.
Yeah.
You'll never find Luke Skywalker and destroy him and destroy the Hope. He doesn't know Luke is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he does. Maybe he can feel it. But my guess is he didn't, because it's the dark side. Who knows?
Yeah.
And he had a connection to Rey and Leia. Obviously, that's why they felt it. He allowed it to happen. So, for all we know, in the next movie, this guy's still looking for Luke Skywalker, or at least is still afraid Luke Skywalker's out there. How is he going to trick me this time? Now they have his guidance still, so we can't just say we won. Even though they know they killed a lot of people, Kylo Ren, knowing that Rey is out there, thinking Luke might still be out there, he's still going to be, oh, sheesh, they're still going on.
And I wonder if there's still that bridge between Kylo and Rey, because, even after Snoke's gone and Rey's gone, when Rey's on the platform of the Millennium Falcon, they kind of look at each other. So he might be able to feel that Luke's gone in that sense.
He might be able to feel Luke's gone. Maybe yes, maybe no, I don't know. But he definitely can, just like Vader can feel that, he knew that Vader was on the ship, or my son's on this planet. They can feel each other because they're so powerful in the Force. You can feel that other power source.
Yes.
For lack of a better term, even though the source is from all around, but you get my meaning.
Yeah. So they can have a much weaker connection like Luke and Vader did, or they could, I don't see them keeping that bridge because they've already played out that interaction that they can have. So they wouldn't want to do that again. But, that is still very much the conflict of, it's the crux of what this last movie has to be is, Rey against Kylo. So, it'll definitely be interesting to see how they interact and how they try to wrap things up with the First Order, especially since the reach is so vast. And without General Organa, that's definitely going to complicate things in telling the story that they want to tell, by keeping General Organa alive, but, not having Carrie, and obviously not having her being replaced or CG'd or killed off screen somewhere. So, definitely looking forward to the next one. I'm more than happy to see Rian Johnson make his own trilogy, and hopefully this Han Solo film has been salvaged by Ron Howard.
Right.
Definitely.
I find that combination very interesting. I've never seen him do a science fiction thing
and picking up after the other two guys were fired.
Yeah, that's yeah.
But I trust Amy Hennig in her decisions, and restored faith when they took Colin Trevorrow off of the third film and bringing JJ back on, and Daisy Ridley's really happy about that, and I really hope we get to see Lando.
I do too. I'll be honest with you, not to backtrack too much, but when they were calling the Outer Ring people, I thought Lando might show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with Billy Williamson. So, but you never know. We might see him, maybe not at all. I thought that was the time to actually show him, but obviously it didn't fit their storyline.
Right. Yeah.
So we still might see a little bit of him. But maybe not. They seem to want, it's okay if you're non-human to stay in the universe, like Wookiees and droids, but I think they want to fade out the faces a little bit more.
Right.
From the old and move on to the new.
Right, but, with, the Battlefront 2 campaign, we know that Lando was very much involved, with taking out the last vestiges of the Empire up to the Battle of Jakku, where the Empire was defeated. We don't know really what happens to him after that, but we do know, his, alien friend, who I can't remember the name of right now, is sarcastic and hilarious, who's now with, Aiden's daughter. He's still very much in the fight. So Lando could be as well, and, hopefully R2 gets more screen time in the next one. And he was only in that one scene. Chewie's only in 3 scenes, and He's like only in the background in one of them.
Yeah, BB-8 is definitely taken over your droid duties, and very well overall.
And people were still bullying C-3PO, which makes it a Star Wars movie.
Yes, indeed.
It's 3 trilogies about bullying 3PO. That's all these 9 movies are. So, you know, as long as that happens, that's fine. You know, he clearly got his arm back. Or, you know, a new arm after the red arm of that droid that sacrificed himself that he was holding on to. But there's definitely going to have to be a lot of rebuilding. We don't know what kind of time frame is going to be in between these movies. We knew that the time frame between Force Awakens and The Last Jedi was going to be very, very little. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple weeks at the most, but it turned out to be even less than that. It was, you know, hours between the two, and, you know, seconds when it came to being on akh-to with Luke and Rey and Chewie and the awesome Porgs. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to it. You know, we'll see every Star Wars movie that there is, because like we said, it's still Star Wars and we want the story. There's still going to be supplemental material. We'll find something else about Snoke. You know, that's going to happen. That's not going to be ignored. If people are, you know, how come we didn't learn anything about Phasma? She's got an entire book with Hux and comic books, if you really, really want that. But, yeah.
And there'll be new bad guys rising up in the next movie, new good guys rising up. As it happens, with every movie, you're
every single one
to someone new.
Yeah, so.
That someone's gonna love and someone's gonna hate.
Exactly. Exactly. Unless Boba Fett comes back, then everybody cheers and everyone's happy until he dies again.
Oh, just, you know, he's cloned himself so many times, you know.
Yeah. So. People will have their theories, and I can't wait to look at their faces when they're all wrong, because they were all wrong in The Last Jedi.
Yes, indeed.
So, that's gonna be it for the AOE podcast number 10. Thank you guys for watching, or listening to this long installment, and let me know what you guys thought about the video and the movie, down below.